Hey, this is a part of the show where we try to show you something or how something works. We call it the "How the heck does that work?" segment. Today's subject is hard drives, which are these small, square devices that live inside of your computer. A lot of people call the whole computer a hard drive. It's actually not. It's this little device that's inside of your computer. It stores all of your important data. Think of it as like the refrigerator in the computer kitchen.
Hard drives use magnetic media like that found in VCR tapes, cassette tapes, and all kinds of other magnetic things. The data is applied to the platters, and that's the little round section you see here. That's how it stores data. Now, the platter's divided up into tracks, which are like concentric little circles, like rings on a tree or something similar to that. And each then track is divided into sectors, which are little segments along those circles that we talked about. And that's how hard drives work. The number of tracks, the size of the sectors, all those kinds of things are what ultimately decide the storage capability of the drive.
So these little arms that you see that kind of are floating over the top of the platter, like the arms on a record player, they hold the read-write heads. They're suspended just above the platter, and they're controlled by the electronics that are underneath the drive to tell it where to go. Now, this platter spins very, very fast, generally between 5,400 and up to 15,000 RPM. And these little arms whip back and forth over the platter seeking the data.
Your computer knows where to go on the drive because it has a table of contents, generally referred to as a file allocation table.
We call it the yo FAT.
The FAT.
Yeah,
what he said. The FAT, it stores information. It's generally located on the outside of the drive. It stores information about every bit of data that's stored on the platter, the track, the sectors, everything about that. Now, if anything goes wrong with any of these precise mechanisms in here, you experience a sudden loss of data.
Ha ha ha! If you've ever heard someone refer to a head crash on a hard drive, they're likely referring to the damage that occurs when these read-write heads come in contact with those platters. And that's basically the crash. Crashes into the platter, which causes physical damage. As you see here, what we've got on the screen there, you can see this ring right in the middle of this thing. This is where the heads have actually made contact with the platter. And so any of the data on that platter in that area, you get to say, bye-bye now. The data is gone.
So we always tell people that since these devices are so precise and mechanical that there are only two kinds of drives, those that have crashed and those that are going to crash. So keep your data backed up.
As Dr. Ruth would say, use protection.
That's what she says?
I think so.
She used to. I've heard that once.
She's kind of out of it now.
Yeah.
Hey, let's see if we can help a few people with technology questions by looking at some of our email here and trying to help Bob out here with his question about CD-ROMs. He says, I have two drives, a CD-ROM and a CDR-W drive. That would be one that just plays and one that makes them or burns them.
Creates data, right? You have a CD burner, it's usually referred to as CDR, CDR-W. Okay.
Right. So he's saying when I make a disk in the CDR-W, it reads fine on that, but when I try to put it in my regular CD-ROM, it won't read it. What gives? What's going on?
Well, Bob, what's most likely happening is that your CD rewritable is either you're not closing the session out in that thing, or your CD-ROM drive, your one that doesn't create or burn CDs, is an older CD drive, and it's not capable of reading something you created on the other drive. So a couple things. Make sure you're closing the session when you're writing it, and make sure that if you have an older CD-ROM drive, that you either want to get a new one if you're concerned about that, or maybe check it on a friend's computer that has a newer, up-to-date CD drive capable of reading those that aren't closed sessions or other types like that.
Sometimes you can slow down the burn speed, really go slow, and sometimes the older drives can read that. So you can try that. Otherwise, you probably want to look at a new drive. Another question we get all the time. I have Windows ME, is wondering if I should upgrade to Windows XP.
Upgrading for the sake of upgrading is never a good idea. We always tell people that, first, before you decide, should I do something or should I not, decide first, what is it you're trying to accomplish?
Right, exactly. Always have a reason to upgrade. And again, we've said for years, if it ain't broke, you don't want to fix it. Yeah, so you want to stay away from those upgrades. Just because my friend has XP and he says it's better, or you hear us saying we hate Windows ME, none of those things are a reason to upgrade.
If what you got is working, stick with it is probably a good thing.
Right, so make sure you have a reason. Identify the reason for upgrading. And this is not just for Windows, this is for any program. Make sure you know why you're upgrading. Generally try to solve a problem, and that's a good reason to do an upgrade as opposed to...
If it ain't broke, fix it till it is.
Exactly.
That's what we get all the time. So
yeah, there's so many possibilities that come into play when you're changing operating systems, so be very, very careful when it comes to upgrading. So, all right, well, that's going to do it for another edition of TechNoPhobia. If you missed any part of today's show, like our Comdex highlights, what to look for in a handheld computer, how to selectively print from web pages, or anything we discussed, it's all posted at datadoctors.com/TV.
And remember, when it comes to technology, there's nothing to fear but fear itself, and, well, maybe an unstable operating system.
Or poorly written manuals.
Or confusing terminology.
Yeah, well, you know what? Maybe you should tune in next week so we can help you some more. Bye-bye now.